Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. Welcome to AI Academy. Just before we get started, just letting you know that we have additional resources available for you. There is an AI and intelligence forum on the ServiceNow community where you can find a lot of content from experts and people on the field. If you have any question, feel free to share them. Here, there's always somebody to answer that and then it benefit the whole ecosystem. So please do use that. If you were invited to this academy by a friend or a colleague, just also you can go to our forum to sign up for any sessions in the future. If you're watching that on YouTube, on the ServiceNow-Now community channel, make sure you subscribe so you get the latest and all the updates on all the content that is being published. And feel free to share the recording with anybody you think would be interested. Today, we'll be covering personalizing your AI search experience with tuning. My name is Loic Sanchez, and I'm an outbound product manager for Platform AI products. The agenda for today, we're going to start with a quick overview of AI search and specifically tuning. And that's only going to take about 5 minutes, and then we'll jump in a live building exercise where we'll see how to do that on a real instance. And we'll get some Q&A throughout the session. If you have any questions, ask them in the Q&A on Zoom, and we'll be happy to answer those as we go along. So with that being said, let's get started. And before we start configuring, let's take a minute to explain what relevancy means and how search results are ranked. So relevancy is like sorting for a table. You can sort the records in a table by a date or a text field. Well, for search, ranking or sorting is based on relevancy. It means that a search engine calculates the relevancy score and then orders or ranks the results based on that score. In old models, the ranking is a static model where the score is calculated with a known formula. So for example, for Zing, the old search engine of ServiceNow, the relevancy is calculated based on the frequency of a search terms, its sequence, and the weight of the fields. In newer models, this ranking is more dynamic and learns based on user behavior. It means it's more adapted to long-term maintenance, experience, and search across tables. For AI search, the model that is deployed out of the box is benchmarked to be slightly better than Zing. And in addition, it learns over time based on the freshness of the records, their popularity, and also matches on title and body of the content, as well as matches on the tags and popularity of those tags. So all these user behavior that are used to better the engine also translates into analytics. You can access a ton of analytics by going on the user experience analytics dashboard. And this is really the best way to look at what your users are looking for and make tuning changes based on that real production data. It's the best way to look for areas of improvement. And that really is the goal of tuning, is to improve how fast a user gets to a result by looking at the average click position and self-result rate. By looking at the queries, you can find that maybe the content the user is looking for is missing. In that case, it's an indication that the content needs to be created. But when the content exists and the user just can't find it, tuning can help. It can help the users because the user's query behavior maybe did not match the content, or the content should be more relevant based on user context. And that's what we're going to explore today. But first, a quick reminder of what was done in the previous session. In the previous session, getting started with AI search, we showed how to set up AI search. We showed how to make a table searchable by indexing its content, with the indexed source, and then how to filter that content in the search source. And we also mentioned that there's a search profile and a search application that makes search available on specific application. Well, in the search profile, there is a lot of settings that can help you personalize the experience. And those are synonyms, stop words, typo handling, and result improvement rules. So with that being said, let's go to an instance and start our live building exercise. So today we're going to look at tuning some of the content in Employee Center. So to do that, I'm going to start by navigating to my polls, and open the Employee Center record. Now, for this specific poll, I see that I have a button here that says View Analytics Settings. It means that the user experience analytics are enabled on that poll. If that's not the case, you should see a button that tells you to activate them first. So that's a first step to do to enable analytics on that poll. If I look at here, it just see that I created that previously through the button. It's all automated. And now Employee Center behaviors and clicks are captured in my analytics. And I'm going to use that later. So what that means is that if I go to the user experience analytics dashboard, I should see a record for Employee Center. So it's right there. I can open that. And so the first thing we see here is all the events that are tracked on that Employee Center. But what I'm looking at specifically today is going to the search analytics dashboard. So it's on the left panel here, and I can open search analytics. And what it does, it opens the dashboard with all the analytics for AI search, specifically for Employee Center. So I see the number of users, number of queries, what's my average response time, my trend of searches over time, whether genius results are triggered or not. And my average click position is something I want to make sure I keep under 2 or 3, meaning that users can get the content they need fast, and my self-resolve rate as well. And also I'm going to be looking at queries in 1 second. So by looking at the queries with no click, I can see what users searched and really couldn't really find any results. So I could see, for example, that I have something around dev or dev laptop. So that's something I want to look at because I don't understand why they would not get a click here. So to do that, I'll go back to my Search Employee Center poll, and I want to open my application first. My application is actually going to tell me which profile I'm using on that portal, so I know where to make my changes. So I open my AI search profile for Employee Center, and here I am. So I have my search sources, I have my synonyms, my stop words, typo handling, genius result, and result improvement rules. And to start with my tuning, I looked at my dashboard, and now I'm going to use the search preview tool that comes with AI search, the advanced management plugin. I can open that in a new window. So in that search preview tool, I can test what my search results are based on specific profile. So I select my Employee Center profile here, and I'm going to see what happens when I type dev laptop. All right, when I type for dev laptop, I can see that it's auto corrected into dev laptop. I can see that if I navigate on the right panel here and click on the book icon here, I see the spell check was triggered. So dev laptop was auto-corrected to dev laptop. And in addition to that, I don't get great results. And I noticed that there is a developer laptop catalog item here that really should be the results that I get first. So what's happening here is that AI search doesn't detect dev as being the same as developer. So in order to tune that, I'm going to go to my synonyms here and create a new synonym dictionary. And I'm going to call it my synonyms. And I'm going to submit. And I'm going to create a new term here. And what I'm going to say is, when I type dev, I want the engine to recognize dev as being developer. And that's where I create a synonym relationship between dev and developer. And then I can publish that. Once I create a new synonym dictionary, I have to publish my search profile again. And now I have two dictionaries on my search profile, and I included the term dev as a synonym for developer. So now if I go back to my search preview here and type dev laptop, now I get a genius result for dev laptop. And the spell check was not triggered, but I got a synonym between dev and developer that was triggered. So that's great. That means that my result now is more relevant. So how does that look for my end user? So I'm going to go as an employee of my employee center and just refresh and see what that experience would look like for them. So if they were to look for a dev laptop now, I would see that they would get a genius result. So the most relevant results here is shown as an actionable card, and they can directly start their request. And that would make my my analytics better. So it makes my average click position being at the top instead of at the bottom of the list. So it means my user is getting what they need to go faster, which is good for the experience. All right, another thing I can do with my synonym is use words that are specific to my organization. So I can personalize my search experience based on what really is specific to my organization. So for example, our company use a software that is called Global Protect that is only used not necessarily by everybody, but for us, it's a VPN software. So what I want to do is that whenever I type Global Protect, I want that to be a synonym to VPN. Why do I want that? So if I go back to the user here and I were to tap, I have an issue with my Global Protect, I would see that I get a lot of results and almost none of them are related to VPN. So it's not really helping the user there. So to prevent that and make the experience better, that's why I create a new synonym. And I'm going to say that when I search for Global Protect, I want that to be a synonym for VPN. And since I'm here, I'm also going to say that Global Protect in only one word without a typo is also a synonym. So that way, if somebody types Global Protect without the space, they will also be shown those results. I made a change to my synonym dictionary, so I have to publish it. And that should be good. So I go back to my end user experience and refresh that page. And my query is still global protect. And what they get here, they get results around VPN, which are way more relevant for that specific use case. All right, we talked about synonyms. Let's take a look at stop words. I'm opening the default stop word dictionary. So stop words are words that are ignored during my search because they don't have a relevancy. So it's words such as your, how, so, if, etc. By default, that dictionary has 153 records or terms, and it's usually pretty good. If you need to add more, you can follow the same steps we followed for synonyms. But in that case, I think for me, it's enough. They cover pretty much all my use cases. Typo handling. So typo handling is that auto spell check that we saw previously. And the way it's done, it's based on indexing content from my index sources. So if I have a clause match between one of my sources, it would suggest that as a spell check. By default, you might have the sysuser table here that is indexed and derives settings from. If you're not using sysuser, just make sure you remove it. It makes the spell check slightly more relevant. But other than that, here, because I'm using knowledge in catalog items, that's good for me. Not going to expand too much on Genius results today, but I see I have active true only for catalog items, and that's why when I looked for dev laptop, I found I got a results there. But let's talk about result improvement rules now. So result improvement rules are ways to boost, promote, or block content based on specific queries or specific user context. So let's look at an example. If I go back to my user here, and I'm going to look at the user profile, I want to check which department they are from. So my employee here is from the sales department. And it just happened that my company released a new policy for traveling. So they created a new knowledge article around travel. And travel is limited right now, but for salespeople, we allow an exception. The problem is that right now, as any employee, if I type for travel, I'll get the request as a Genius result, which is good. But then my knowledge article, they are related to domestic travel policy or travel expense policy, which is kind of generic. And then my travel exception for sales article is a lower ranked result here. And I'm afraid my sales people, they won't see that very easily. So I'm going to create a result improvement rule to make that better. So how does that work? I'm going back to my search profile and go to result improvement rules. And I create a new one. And I'm going to give it a name, exception for sales, travel exception for sales. And I'm not going to specify start and end date, but you'll see they're going to be automatically populated. And what I want to do is I want that rule to be triggered when somebody searches for something that contains travel. And also, I want that rule to only apply when the user department is sales. So that way, it allows me to I'm going to promote a content based on a specific user context. I can see that when I create a trigger that is based on query, there's a checkbox that appears here to see if I want to expand my query term to my synonym dictionary, which is good in that case. So I want to submit that. And you see the start and end date are automatically populated. And what I want to do is that when this specific set of trigger conditions gets triggered, I want to promote a document. And I'm going to type travel. I'm going to look for my travel exception for sales document. I'm going to click on the plus sign to add it to my list, and then add document and close. All right. Now I'm going to click on update. And in that case, my result improvement rule state is draft because I need to publish my profile, and then it's going to be available. And I'm going to go to my search preview to test that. So we saw that as the end user, when I typed travel previously, the exception to the travel policy was 4 or 5th in the ranking. If I type travel, well, first out, so I want to check that rule based on user context. So I'm going to use those advanced feature here on the preview testing tool here. And I'm going to say if user department is sales, so it's going to test the search as somebody in the user in the department sales. Sorry. Click on search, and now I see that my travel exception for sales is my first knowledge article that is returned, which is better. If I reload that page and do the same thing without any user context, we still have the same for any other users, which makes sense. We don't want to promote that article if you are not from sales. And so for the end user, if I go back to that, we saw that was previously what we were getting. And if I refresh that page and type of travel, and now I get my travel exception for sales. So that way the content is promoted and it's more relevant for my users. Okay, so now let's look at another use case. I can also use result improvement rule to promote, to block some content. So what do I mean? So as an employee, if I type transfer because I'm interested in transferring to an internal position, I see some results. And one of them at the end is something around poor performance. So as an employee, I'm allowed, or a manager, I can see that there is some guide around poor performance that gets triggered when I type transfer. It's not a great experience for my users. They should not be looking at something regarding their poor performance where they look for transfer. So I want to change that. And the way I'm going to change that is creating another result improvement rule. Block my poor performance article there. And when the query is or contains the word transfer, I want to block a specific document. And that was my guide to addressing poor performance. All right, I want to block that when I type for transfer. I'm going to update. And I can publish my search profile. I'm going back to my, I love testing my results first here because I get all different data on what's happening. So I'm going to type transfer again. And I'm going to see that I triggered a query rule here to block poor performance. So that's exactly what I was trying to do. So that's good news. I can debug or test that here. And for the end user, how does that look like? So I'm just going to refresh, and it's going to do the same query, but with the new conditions. So when I type transfer and I go all the way at the bottom of my list, I don't see that article anymore. So which is great. I blocked that content. So I made the experience a lot more in line with what my organization is trying to achieve. All right, that was it for the exercise.